David Bishop, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I've got the fall look on as I see you are decked out in, what is that? Mustard yellow?
I think it's more of a camel tan, but some people accuse me of being colorblind, so I don't really know.
I'll say we'll fix it in post production.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, it's getting frosty out overnight. It's that
Yes,
time of
it
year.
is.
Northern Hemisphere's going into slumber. But you know what's not sleeping, David?
What?
Are the eGrocery sales numbers.
No, they keep us up.
How do you like that segue?
That is good, Mark. Yeah, we had another barn burner in September, continuing at least a 4-month streak that we started talking back in July of this year about. So yeah, more of a good thing coming. But I guess maybe it's a question of who you're talking to. It's definitely more of a good thing for Walmart.
Yeah, definitely. I'd asked you earlier, is this a case of a rising tide lifts all boats? Well, it seems some boats are getting higher than others.
Yeah. Well, there's no question that all the promotional activity we've seen over the last quarter plus has brought back in customers who had used us in the past or were light users, but it's also continued to expand the whole pool. Although, again, the whole pool is continuing to shrink as we get to near saturation, around 80+% of households ever using online to buy groceries. So, yeah, all the ships are rising with this tide. From a method standpoint, it's not the same thing necessarily at the format standpoint, but it's a function of what strategies retailers are pursuing and how well they're able to execute that, as well as where they're positioned in the market on a pricing standpoint. All those factors are playing into the underlying trends, feeding into that top line number.
From your perspective, what is this a sustainable trend? Is this something that we're going to have to wait till this time next year to see if it actually did reshape the market behavior?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with what you just said at the end, which is essentially we do need to wait until about July of 2024-25 to see how we lap these, robust sales levels. What's clear is, this is the 4th month in a row. So we have a trend that has emerged in the near term. It appears as though that trend is going to now continue, fed and fueled by the benefits and proceeds coming from all this promotional activity. Now, with that said, given that those promotional activities were primarily focused on an annual membership, that just simply means, we have 12 months before those customers have to make a choice or decide whether the cost is worth the value. I think we may be establishing a new base at this point, at this elevated level. And then the question is, what does growth look like going forward? I think if we jumped a year ahead, we would anticipate that we would see slower growth next year as a result of lapping strong sales, but it would still be a promising sign if we're still expanding. And that would, again, be reverting to some of the longer term growth trends, that we used to see before COVID that, are essentially just re-establishing themselves in this new period. But, clearly, the promotional activity this year has shaken the tree, so to speak, woken some people up, gotten them off the sidelines, gotten them back active online. It's all good. Mm-hmm. But now the work is in front of those retailers in terms of, keeping and pleasing those new customers or re-engaged customers that are using the service.
And of course, we're going into the holiday season where you will have more family gatherings, presumably more food at home activity, as opposed to food away from home. So that happening on top of what you're seeing in terms of order frequency and dollar amount that customers are spending, I'm assuming we can expect to see even higher numbers, and then at least in the short term.
If we were to look forward to the remainder of the fourth quarter, so it would be the whole fourth quarter, right? October, yeah. November, and December. Our expectations now are that this acceleration or surge that we've seen in the third quarter will continue through the fourth quarter of this year. That's going to lift up the expectations we've had. At the end of the year, we will revisit our forecast and see how that changes going forward. But, clearly we expect this to go up. And keep in mind that, mass and Walmart in particular, when you talk about the fourth quarter, general merchandise can play a even bigger role for them. This is where kind of gift giving comes in. And, the notion of one-stop shop may start to creep even more in. I'm not suggesting that someone's going to buy a TV with their groceries, but it could be a pair of jeans or socks or whatnot. And given all the moves that Walmart has made to make it even easier to do that, the expectation is, we'll see consumer behavior respond to that.
Yeah. And again, with the holiday season, I could see some consumers just, giving away their delivery memberships as gifts, which may also.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a great point to raise as an idea for those who maybe haven't thought of that. One of the things we've seen or heard, I should say, anecdotally about the Walmart Plus membership is that some of these are being purchased for, older households by their younger adult parents. So, if you look at it that way, why shouldn't the regionals be trying to pursue a similar approach, right?
Are there any indications as to what's happening around the intent to purchase between a mass retailer and a regional? Is it widening?
On the monthly basis, it's wobbling, but yes, it has widened. If we were to step back and just look at the past 3 months, the quarter view, because that's something we did recently and separately as part of our market share report, you can see that, mass and supermarkets overall have been seeing slowly declining repeat rates. But at the same time that's happening, the gap between mass and supermarkets has expanded, and it's expanded in favor of mass, meaning the supermarket intent is falling increasingly behind. That's concerning. And it's doing that in particular much more so in delivery versus pickup. And our hypothesis is that is due to the way Walmart is delivering the majority of their delivery orders, which is through first-party distribution versus a third-party white label or a third-party provider, period.
And we've talked about this before. Both Amazon and Walmart are making use of the in-home delivery as an extension of that delivery service. So it's adding an additional value experience on top of the service.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at kind of the classic way of expanding market share or the market, this is an example of selling a new service to existing customers or introducing a new service to attract customers to use the service, right? In both cases, those customers are likely Walmart customers already. And by already, I mean in the last few years. However, as we saw at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, introduction of a new service that appeals to a customer who hadn't used Walmart could in fact cause them to consider Walmart simply because it enables them to get all the benefits of shopping from Walmart without any of the potential negative associations a person may have associated with being seen walking in a Walmart. Not that I share that, but there are people out there who, prefer not to be seen shopping at discount retailers. So, it's a great example of, again, introducing a new service to either, expand the share of wallet with existing customers or potentially attract ones that you weren't currently serving, just given the offering or range of offering that you had.
Now, I know you pay very close attention, at least to the financial calls for Walmart, for any of the public companies in this space. First of all, are they sharing what it's costing their business to do the promotions? Do you have any metric around what kind of dollars are being invested here?
No, they're not necessarily talking about that acquisition cost or that investment in promotion. I think, the terminology that they would use, maybe hide behind, is investment in price. And again, we talked about the discounting of memberships as a form of price discounting because you are investing in that membership. In fact, I think that's been one of the more effective tactics to employ relative to trying to build the subscription business. Because after all, the one thing that changed 4 months ago wasn't the fact that Walmart just introduced Walmart Plus or Instacart did the same with Instacart Plus. It was that they started to promote aggressive deep discounts, 50 to 80%. And now we see others. I mean, Target was most recently doing that with their Target Circle 360. So the discount was the catalyst for driving this. And so that really reinforced that the retailers touched on something that we've talked about, which is the customer's desire to avoid paying more than necessary, or said another way, finding ways to help your customer save money. So if the reference point is $99 or whatever it may be for the full price annual membership, and you discount it by 50% in the case of Walmart, or 80% like Instacart did, your reference is, wow, that's a huge savings.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take advantage of that. It'd be no different than buying a product on deal on Prime Day or someone else's day, whatever retailer you're talking about. So those discounts matter a lot, and they really illustrate the importance of helping your customers save today as a way to, earn their patronage and their dollars. And we're seeing that still with regionals in different forms, where we continue to hear another retailer this week rolling back prices on, more items in their store. And so, you can see everyone's trying to do whatever they can to show and demonstrate to their customers how they're helping them save. And the important part is, giving them that reference. So if you're lowering that price by 50%, gosh darn it, get full credit for that and make that extremely clear. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of these communications. And again, one of the core message points, whether we're looking at Walmart or someone like DoorDash, is they're really emphasizing free, even though it really isn't free. They're talking about the fact that this membership, whether it's DoorDash Pass or Walmart's Walmart Plus, is helping them avoid paying more than necessary. But yes, it is true. They had to pay for the subscription. But if these are already existing customers using the service, this is an immediate benefit. So the discount clearly was important to reduce that barrier for some who were maybe still on the sidelines about forking over $99 at once. And I think that's a real issue. If you read a lot of comments from customers, like I do, whether it's on Reddit or social media sites, one of the things that comes up is, someone who places $100+ order on a site and has that order canceled, that can have dramatic implications for customer and the retailer.
And just picking up on your comment about canceled orders, if you don't think that those complaints don't make it their way to the executive suite at a regional grocer, you're sadly mistaken. I know several teams that have to deal with those kinds of issues going right to the top. So I think it's imperative that there's communication from the retailer to the customer that it basically explains why the order was canceled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If the main component of the customer value proposition, especially for delivery, is about convenience, the ease of use, the ease of effort, you click and you're done, then when this happens, it really breaks that promise and it steps on it and smashes it up. And when you read these comments, you feel for these households. One that I read over the weekend was a canceled order caused them to delay purchasing any food in advance of the Labor Day weekend during September because, they were placing an order that essentially was kind of maxing out their card. It got canceled, but the hold on the credit card was there. It remained. It wouldn't be taken off until after the holidays. So they were in a bind. And it wasn't their fault. So, yeah, I think the communications about why is absolutely essential. It's the minimum that you should do. And having a degree of empathy, I would argue a regional could step up and say, we cannot accept or tolerate this. We need to have an effective response that wins that person back and makes them a champion of ours. We've seen this in the past. So ensuring that they get that delivery, even if it's the next day, by finding creative ways to essentially front them the money without, exposing them to liability is crucial. And you can do that. You're going to have a cheerleader screaming from the top of the mountains telling you how great your customer service is. And they're going to do that organically online or when they're with friends. And it's that type of positive word of mouth that regionals could absolutely take advantage of if they are truly committed to their customer.
Yeah, that's a great example of how the focus on the customer experience and making sure that you're firing on all operational cylinders is critical in an environment like this where Walmart is taking the lion's share of the delivery business.
I mean, can you imagine if, you were placing an order for a major holiday or a family function, and this was your big order for that. You spent your time, you prepared, and then it gets canceled, and then whammy, you find out, oh, gee, I don't have enough credit on my credit card. I don't know if you would give that retailer a second chance at that point, right?
No, not when the rest of the family is holding you accountable.
Yeah, great, guys. Let's go into the pantry and figure out how to make Thanksgiving work. So it's that kind of execution. We understand that it happens and we understand why. The customer point of view is, I don't care. My expectation is you deliver what I ordered, and if you can't, then I'll go, spend my money elsewhere else.
That's right.
Make my life easier, not harder.
On that note, great example, David. Appreciate it. September results. Reach out to David. Reach out to myself. Happy to share the report with any interested retailer. Till next time, David. Have a great month.
You too, Mark.